Hi guys, meet Clara DYCE BooJooAdventures. Born on the 25th of August 2022. This is our baby girl.
Yeah, so we just fed her. So now she's just all snuggled up and sleeping.
Check out her hair.
Yeah.
She has so much hair.
It's not just on her head, it's on her body as well.
She has double eyelids. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
And her eyelashes are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And if she opens her eyes, you'd see that she has beautiful eyes.
Oh.
Beautiful eyes.
Oh. Sleepy eyes.
Ouch! Oh, she hurts to laugh.
Oh.
That was hilarious.
Well, so right now she's in a swaddle that Ma gave. It's like a strap-on swaddle.
She hates being swaddled.
Yeah, she hates it. She loves to put her hands up and shake like just don't care.
Yeah.
But we just had to swaddle her because each time we don't,
She gets so frightened, she startles herself.
yeah, she wakes up.
And then she'll start crying really badly. But if you look at her features, you can see that
She's a side smooth.
she has my lips and my nose, both our eyes.
Definitely my ear because her ear is
Folded.
Yes.
She has juice eyebrows, my forehead, and well, I guess both our hair.
Yeah.
Both of us have quite a lot of hair.
Yeah, wavy hair as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is Clara, and we're so glad to introduce her to you. So now we're gonna share about our labor and delivery and postpartum experience.
Yep. Good night, Clara. Goodbye.
Hi guys! So yeah, that is Clara. We're so glad to finally introduce her to you. So we're gonna share about our labor and delivery plus postpartum experience from a mom's perspective and the dad's perspective. So on 24th August 2022, I was scheduled to be induced. I was 39 weeks. So Ju dropped me off to the hospital at around 8 a.m.
Yep.
I got admitted quite early. They got my COVID test done, and they basically did a lot of tests and assessment on me because I was actually going through this rash called PUPPP rash, and it was quite bad because it spread all over my hands, my entire leg, my baby bump. So, and it was pretty inflamed. So they did a lot of blood tests just to make sure there was nothing wrong with my liver, there was nothing wrong with the internal stuff before they induced me. They just wanted to make sure that I was okay, and I only got induced around 3:45 p.m.
Yep.
That's when they inserted a catheter inside of me and then pumped some water into it. Let me see if I can get you a picture. This is what a balloon Foley looks like. So they put in the yellow stuff inside past my cervix opening, then they pump some water in it to form the balloon. So what happens is that let's say this is my cervix. They inserted the catheter, they pump water into it, then it becomes a balloon. So it was resting at the top of my cervix, and apparently when I was induced, I was already 2 cm dilated. And so the hopes is that once the balloon falls out through my cervix itself, I would be 3 to 4 cm dilated.
The purpose of that is basically to expand her cervix. That's what they call it, inducing.
Yeah.
So they started off with that first before giving her any meds.
Yeah, so it was like a manual induction and not like a medical induction.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is that once they actually did that, I started getting contractions, and it was not fun, but I don't know how to explain. It was a very surreal experience for me because I've never felt contractions in this way before. So instead of like feeling like, oh, it's so painful, I actually like, okay, like, oh, this is what it feels like.
Well, I guess it's also because she had Braxton Hicks a few times as well, so
Yeah.
it was like practice contractions.
Yeah.
So when she had the real contractions, it was not a surprise to her lah. It was familiar, but a bit.
It felt different though.
Yeah, but it was more intense. A bit more intense, I guess.
It felt different. Yeah.
So I guess for
definitely
my side,
way more intense.
yeah. Well, for my side, I basically dropped her off. Then I straight away went to take my COVID test, and then I worked at home. It was only around 4:30 I made my way to the hospital to visit her, because husbands can only visit their wives only from 5 to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
So
Visiting hours.
yeah, so I brought my dinner, had dinner with her, and it was only at around after 7 I continued working at the hospital downstairs, because I didn't want to go through the jam. It's peak hour at that time. It was only around 8:30 or 9. That's when I left for home to rest, to shower and sleep.
Yeah.
It was only about 9 or 10 p.m. That's when you told
9:30.
me. Yeah, 9:30. That's when you told me that
The balloon folly came out.
yeah, it came
But
out.
before that, when Drew visited from 5 to 7, I'm quite happy. In a way, it was a blessing in disguise that I was only induced at 3:45 p.m. because once I was induced, then I started getting contractions. So in a way, Drew got to be with me during the early stage of labor for a short bit. During my contractions, he actually timed it. It was about 1 minute. It was regular contractions lasting 1 minute, 5 minutes apart. So like those were the contractions I was feeling from around 4 to 6 p.m. and then it just stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite regular at that
And then it
when I
just
was
stopped,
there. But then
yeah.
after it stopped, so it was
So
about
before that, to progress it, I actually stood by the bed with a peanut ball, and then like I was basically leaning on the peanut ball, and I also did some squats to kind of progress labor. And then by 9:33 p.m. the balloon folly came out when I was in the toilet. So yeah.
Yeah, you didn't tell them about how you came out with the balloon folly to the nurse.
Oh yeah, it
And-
was hilarious.
yeah.
I don't know why. Usually when people are around 3 to 4 cm dilated, a lot of people are actually in immense pain. Like even 2 cm people are in immense pain, but I was somehow okay. And so
she was able to walk out. And
yeah.
Normally, they say normally mothers won't be able to walk when they are 2 or 3 cm
Yeah,
dilated.
yeah. So the balloon folly came out, and then I actually went to the staff nurse room, and I held it, and I was like, this came out. All of them, like literally a group of nurses, just looked at me in shock, and they're like, okay, we'll call the doctor, and it was it hurts to laugh. So that was really funny because they were so surprised that I wasn't like screaming in bed, but instead, I was like walking out of my room to where they were and be like, hey, this came out. So yeah, that was really hilarious. Immediately the doctors came in to check on me because according to the nurses, they are saying that patients like me are scary because they say that maybe my tolerance for pain is very high, so maybe I'm very very far progressed in labor already, but I just don't feel it, or rather I'm not showing it. So they are very scared of patients like me because they are scared, like, like 1 minute you're fine, next minute the baby's out, that kind of thing. So yeah, the doctor came to check on me. Let me see my notes. The doctor came to check on me, and apparently I was 3 to 4 cm dilated, and but the thickness, so dilated means the opening, but you also want the thickness of the cervix to thin. So the cervix was still quite thick. It was like 2 cm. They want it to be like 0.5 cm.
0.5 to 1 cm, remember?
Yeah, 0.5 to 1 cm. So technically, once I was 3 to 4 cm dilated, they could actually move me down to the labor ward already. But the senior doctor was worried that if they moved me down too quickly, I might not dilate fast enough. Maybe because of the environment, or because I have to be hooked up to so many machines
because
and stuff.
the labor room is a stressful place.
Yeah, it is, and you can hear like so many other women giving birth in that floor and screaming or having contractions and stuff like that. And also, like, once you go down, you have to be hooked up to machines, so you can't really like rotate your positions. You can't really like walk around. So she said, okay, why don't you stay in this ward, rest. 8 a.m. No, they will check again at 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. So throughout this time, because I had GBS, Group B Streptococcus, they actually were giving me antibiotics through an IV
drip.
insertion every 4 hours. So yeah, I was woken up every 4 hours to get the antibiotics for Clara's protection. So yeah, around 4 a.m. the doctor came to administer another dose of antibiotics, and during that time they also timed my contractions. I had 3 contractions every 10 minutes lasting 30 seconds each. So it was considered moderate contractions, so they decided to check back again at 6 a.m. and at 6:30 a.m. they checked me. I was 4 cm dilated, and from 2 cm thickness I was 1 cm thick. So they were like, okay, you're ready to go to the labor ward. So from there, doctors was like, have your breakfast and then we'll send you down. What they didn't tell me is that that would be my last meal until like I give birth. So I was so disappointed because
I mean, I got a call from Boo saying
Yeah.
that, oh, I can come to the hospital now to collect her stuff.
yeah, because I would be moved down to the labor ward.
Yeah, so okay, so I rushed over. I even bought her some like pastries.
Pie.
Yeah, I wanted to
Yeah,
give it to her,
my
but
favorite.
then she was already full from her hospital breakfast.
No. When I finally got the pie,
Yeah.
I had to move. They had
Yeah.
to bring me in a wheelchair to the labor ward.
Yeah.
So like, I just had no time to eat it. The nurse wouldn't allow me to bring food in there as well. So what I didn't know was that what I ate, which was like really sad porridge and some like random chocolate drink,
Yeah.
I didn't know that would be my last meal
For a very
until
long time.
the next day.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, I was so hungry throughout the day, but we'll get to that later. So once, throughout the entire 24th of August, once Drew dropped me, he never came back to the hospital except for the visiting hours, because there was no point. I mean, like, I told him like, I don't think I'll progress that quickly throughout the night. So why don't you go back, have your sleep, and then only come back when I call you. So yeah, I'm glad we did that because Drew managed to get some rest.
Yeah, and I managed to work as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second day, came back. So for when she told me that she's already 3 cm dilated, 1 cm thickness, so I thought maybe she's moving to the labor ward. So I thought maybe it would be progress really fast right after.
Yeah.
And I will be able to meet her at the
Oh,
labor
we
ward.
didn't know we were in for another long day.
Yeah.
A long day.
I basically just waited down there, like during my free time. I just watched Netflix.
Yeah, Drew came to collect my stuff. Because once I moved down to the labor ward, I can't bring anything with me.
Yep.
So Drew had to like get all my stuff and put it in the car. And he was at first informed that he could join me in the labor ward as soon as I moved down, but that was not really the case. And they also didn't recommend for Drew to come in so soon until the pain was intolerable for me, because once he goes in, he can't use his phone, he can't eat anything,
Yeah, I can't go
he
out.
can't leave. So it was just like, it was a lot of rules lah, and everything's due to COVID and stuff like that. So they're like, it's no point that he comes in so early because he will just be sitting here with you. Although that would have been great, but still, like, you know, I mean, it makes sense. He couldn't go out to eat as well. So yeah.
So basically just during my free time, I just watch Netflix and just chill over there downstairs. I kept calling several times to check what's the updates, and the nurses kept telling me that you were still 3 cm dilated. So it was, I think, after 4 hours or so, and I was about to reach lunchtime. I thought, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna have my lunch. Like, I'll head over to Subway and grab a bite.
So once I was sent to the labor ward, they did some CTG for baby's heart rate to check that she's doing okay, and blood pressure check for me. Then they actually recruited me because it's a teaching hospital. So they recruited me for a massage chair study, which was hilarious but quite nice at the same time and painful. So I had a 30-minute massage on this super premium massage chair, which they were thinking would help to progress labor and things like that. So whenever the rollers went past my lower back, oh my gosh, it hurts so bad. But in the end of the entire 30 minutes massage, like my lower back felt less tense. So I think in a way it did help. Then I went back, rest, had CTG and blood pressure, and then 10 a.m. the epidural was administered. Oh my gosh, epidural, where do I even begin? So a lot of you are worried of epidural because of the thick needle that goes into your spine, right? But that's not actually the part that hurts. So how it works is that they actually asked me to curl up on the bed, like sit up and then like curl my body. I had to kind of like hug the pillow and curl so that they can fully feel my spine. And then what happened is they inserted one needle, which was thinner at first, to kind of like numb the area a bit. And then they inserted a second needle, which was the epidural needle. And when they inserted that needle, I could feel that it was a thick, big needle, but it hurt, but it didn't it wasn't the most painful part of the epidural. So the first part just felt like a needle, like a needle poke, right, like an injection. Second one felt like an injection, but like a more intense injection. And the scary part about epidural is that when they poke you or they do anything, you cannot like just suddenly move and stuff like that, because it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
If
I mean, you're talking about the spine here.
yeah, they're injecting into the spine.
Yeah.
So when they inserted the epidural needle, it hurt, but it was still like, it's still manageable. And the part that actually hurt was when they started pressing the medication in. When they did that, my entire right side of my lower back had this very intense pain, and I could feel like the medicine seeping into my right lower back. Not to scare any of you who are thinking of having an epidural, but you know, that was my experience, at least, of how the epidural felt. To be honest, right before I got the epidural, the contractions were still manageable. To be honest, I could still talk through it, and all the doctors who looked at me, who came and visited me, they're like, oh my gosh, you're like superstar patient, like you're superstar like mama, like you still look fine and you still look great despite being 4 cm dilated. So everyone is really shocked about my current state of condition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So epidural was administered, and since then, like I basically can't go to the toilet to pee myself. I can't anything, and I just could only like lie down on the bed like that, or like they could turn me. So but the thing about the epidural is that they didn't insert so much to the point that I can't feel or move my legs at all. I could still like bend my legs on my own and stuff like that. It's just that it reduced the pain of the contractions, but I could still feel them. So another thing that they told me is that there's this button where I could add like a booster epidural whenever the pain was unbearable. So the epidural, once inserted, it will continuously flow and numb you from the abdomen downwards. But the thing is that they don't fully numb you. So if it's too painful, then I can add a booster. But the thing is, they said be careful not to add too much booster, because if you add too much to the point that you can't even lift your own legs yourself, during the point where you're pushing out your baby, we might turn off the epidural so that you can be assisted to like feel the contractions to push your baby out. So that was definitely not something I wanted happening, because I didn't get an epidural only to have it turn off at the point where I need it the most. So yeah, anyways, epidural, they also accidentally hit a nerve. So my right leg had some electric shocks twice. But then, you know, it went away after that. So gosh, the entire experience was really scary. I really wish Drew was there with me. But yeah, it's okay. So anyway, from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. they inserted a catheter to every 2 hours actually. They'll come to empty my bladder from urine and stuff like that. Doctor checked, and I was apparently only 3 cm dilated and 1.5 cm effaced. So the thickness was 1.5 cm and I was 3 cm. Earlier on, they checked, it was 4 cm and then 1 cm. So I'm not sure, because when they check, they actually just use their hands. So it's really subjective, I guess, based on the doctor that's checking. So they decided to start me on oxytocin drip, which is a hormone which will help with kick-starting the contractions, or rather make it stronger and more regular. They started with 6 grams of oxytocin, then they pumped it up to 12 grams, then they pumped it up to 24 grams, and then 48 grams. So it doubled every single time.
Yeah, that's a lot. And
yeah, and the contractions like finally hit 5 in 10. So what they were trying to achieve is 5 contractions within 10 minutes. So that was the level of contractions they were trying to kind of like you know, achieve. So despite having the epidural contractions, was still painful, and I got at one point I got really flushed and really warm, and they turned up the AC and took a wet cloth and wiped my face, and they constantly gave me water as well. That was the only thing I could have throughout that entire labor procedure. I was so hungry.
But you had saline also, right?
Yeah, I was on the saline water drips as well, but all I could have was water. So at 2 p.m, I was still 3 cm dilated and 1 cm effaced. So at this point, they broke my water bag to kind of like progress matters.
And she was still 3 cm dilated?
Yeah, so after they broke the water bag, contractions got more intense, and then I was considered in active labor from 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. So throughout this entire time, you know, Drew was like just waiting downstairs because he was like, what do I do? Do I go back? Do I
basically call, and they still say that you're 3 cm dilated. They didn't give me any updates on whether your water was broke or not, or whether they put a catheter or any updates of that. They just told me what dilation you are currently.
So I think the nurse called Drew around 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. to tell him like, you can go back, have a good meal, have a shower, get some rest, but be back here before 6 p.m.
Yeah, because I'll basically need to have my dinner, because after once I'm there with her, I will not be able to leave
or eat.
Yeah,
in the labor ward.
Yes, and I guess also for safety reasons, because I had to take a COVID test beforehand and give that to them, so make sure that everyone in the room does not have COVID.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So I went back, but instead of showering, I decided to clean the house up, to prepare the house for my in-laws, for Celine's parents, because they will be staying with us for the confinement.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a rush. How we cleaned the whole house, prepared the beds, and
he only arrived around 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m.
around there, because I also had to go to my parents' place to pick up your confinement food.
And then he had to pack his dinner as well. So, and eat his dinner.
So I basically just braced through the jam and had my dinner in the car. So
he only arrived at 6:30 p.m. But at that point, I was like dying already. Like I was flushed and everything. And then the nurse was like, "Oh my gosh, where's your husband?"
Yeah, I was like, I think I reached on actually 6:15 or 6:10. But then the nurse at the front desk was taking some time, because I gave her my documents. I registered. It was only at 6:30. Then she said, "Oh, I can go in now." So that's why I went in.
But
saw her.
But one funny thing is that when I was having contractions, I would like basically close my eyes. I'll breathe through the contractions, which really helped, by the way. Like breathing through contractions, I don't know how to explain. Like once you get contractions, it's like this intense cramping of your like uterus area, right? And when you breathe, right, it actually feels like the oxygen fills the cramped up space, and it becomes less cramped. So that's why like they say breathing through your contractions is very important, and it really did help a lot. So whenever I breathe through my contractions, I'll close my eyes, I'll be like, so I'll be doing that, and because I was so hungry, right, and the room was like cold but I was feeling hot, like when I closed, there was one point where I closed my eyes and I breathed in, I actually smelled and saw caramel popcorn. And I was just like, oh my gosh, warm caramel popcorn. And like the doctors were all like really entertained by me in the labor ward, because I was like really like comical and stuff like that. And they were just like, wow, goodness, like you're really in good spirits despite the contractions and pains that you're going through. And so many times they asked me, do you want the gas? Do you want the gas? And I was like, nah, I don't want. And I'm so proud to report that this entire time, I only pressed the booster button like 3 times. Max 3 times. So yeah, I was quite happy. Like I didn't want to like completely numb myself too much. So yeah, Drew only arrived around 6:30 p.m. and during that time I was still having quite strong contractions, and at some point they asked me to like shift positions, and during that time the CTG machine showed that Clara had some heart rate distress. Basically her heart rate dropped, and it showed that there was fetal distress, but they were thinking like, oh, maybe this is because of like me changing positions, which was the case lah, you know, because a few times when they asked me to change positions, usually like the heart rate would drop. So during that time, some doctors ran in because they were monitoring the CTG from another room, and they basically asked the doctors who were attending to me to reduce the oxytocin level. And that time Drew had already arrived, so he was with me and for some of the strong contractions and things like that.
Yeah.
But he was honestly only there with me for about like maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
Very short.
Very short, 10 to 15 minutes
And
max.
I had to leave already after that
Because doctors came in, they checked me again. I was still 3 cm dilated, but I was 0.5 cm effaced. So the thickness definitely went down a lot, and I was ready thickness wise. Dilation wise, I was still not there yet. To be fair, I had until 12 a.m. actually.
Yeah, but then it's like, can you
So
imagine?
another 6 hours.
Can you imagine? She's only 3 cm and she has not moved at all. I mean, she's supposed to.
From
She's supposed to
6
go.
a.m.
She's supposed to go to 10 cm.
Yeah,
right?
10 cm. So from 6 a.m. all the way to 6:30 p.m., I was still at 3 to 4 cm dilated.
Yeah.
So, but I did the thickness did reduce, but the dilation was just stuck. So to be fair, I had another 6 hours to go since the water bag was broken. They said like they'll give me until 12 a.m. and if things still didn't progress, then we would have to go for an emergency C-sec. So there was still 6 hours to go, but because Clara's heart rate was dropping and it showed that there was signs of fetal distress, that's when they decided it's best that we go for emergency C-sec. Drew was in the room. Gosh man, like suddenly like 15 people like came into this tiny labor ward.
Yeah.
And it was chaotic, man.
I mean, it's smaller than this room. I mean, it's much smaller than this room, and there's
Yeah.
just so many of them.
It
Like,
was
wow,
so chaotic.
do we need that many people?
It was so chaotic because once they decided that I should go into emergency C-sec, there was a lot of things to be done to prep me for surgery. So like there were nurses who were shaving me, and then there was the anesthetic doctor who was trying to insert more epidural and things like that to prepare me for surgery. And then there was also like a lot of doctors who were coming in asking me to sign this form, sign that form. Honestly, everything happened so fast. I don't know what I was signing, and at the same time they were giving me like medicine for gastric, medicine so that I won't vomit, and like imagine like all of this happened within a span of 5 minutes. So you can only imagine how fast everything was progressing.
Yeah.
And at one point it was so crowded they actually asked Drew to leave the room.
Yeah, it's like I was like, whoa, what's happening? It's like it's so fast that you had no time to absorb and like
It was very overwhelming, to be honest. When they were and then a doctor came to me, and while they were shaving me, while they were asking me to sign stuff, while the anesthetic doctor was like injecting stuff into me, a doctor was explaining the risk of C-section.
Yeah.
All within 5 minutes. She's like, okay, there's a risk of this, that, and blah 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 blah, everything. And all I remembered feeling at that point is that I was very overwhelmed, and I was on the brink of tears. I was honestly on the brink of tears. I was feeling like I want to cry already.
Yeah, because C-sec was not all we wanted
Yeah,
to do.
but
We really wanted to do a vaginal birth.
yeah, and having gone through labor from 24th August all the way until 25th August 6:30 p.m., that was a long duration, and I still felt like I could do it, but because of the fetal heart rate distress, that's a risk that we didn't want to take.
Yeah.
So I really felt at that point like I kind of had no choice, and like it was not within my control. And honestly, I really felt like bursting out in tears at that point, but I really tried my best to compose myself and to like hold it in and to stay strong. They pushed me to the operating theatre within 5 minutes.
And I thought maybe I could go in as well, but because
I didn't even get to kiss Drew before the...
It was just it happened so fast, and also because this is a government hospital.
Yeah,
so they do not
semi-government.
Yeah, semi-government. So they do not allow the husbands to be in the operating theatre.
Yeah.
So
when they were pushing me out, like I wanted to get a kiss from Drew before I went in, because it's surgery. Like you don't know what can happen in surgery. So I wanted to give him a kiss, but then like they was pushing me so fast, and all I could do was a love shape. While they were pushing me into the operating theatre, all I could do was a love shape to him. And then the doctors or nurses actually said, yeah, it's okay lah, you can do a bigger love shape. So I actually did this. While I was on the bed, I was like, I did this, and then Drew was like doing that. So like that's the closest we got to like a kiss or a hug or any sort of intimacy before the surgery.
And I waited there for a while, then they told me I can just go downstairs and we have another dinner, and we'll just chill and wait, and then they will call me.
So 7 p.m. surgery began, and it was so scary before surgery, okay, because like the anesthetic doctor had to make sure that the area that they were going to cut was actually numb so that I won't feel the pain of the knife cutting into me. Honestly, this is like my first surgery. It was so scary. I really like I said, I was like feeling like I was on the brink of tears already. And then like this doctor came and he like put something sharp on my head. He's like, can you feel this? Is it pain? Is it sharp? I'm like, yeah. And he put it on my abdomen where they were supposed to cut, and he's like, can you feel this? Is it pain? Is it sharp? I'm like, yeah, I can feel it. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like can you imagine like what if, like my biggest fear at that point was like, what if the epidural was not strong enough and I could feel like the knife cutting into me. Like that was honestly my biggest fear at that point.
Yeah.
So like he tried again. He's like, do you feel pain? Is it sharp? I was like, yeah. And then he did that. He's like, do you feel sharpness? Like, is it pain or is it just a pressure? And I was like, I can feel the sharpness. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I'm sure. So he was like, oh, then he's like, oh, then he told the other doctors like, oh, I don't think it's working. So they pumped even more, and then they tried again. They took something cold. They're like, okay, you feel cold, then they put it there. Do you feel cold? I'm like, no, okay, I don't feel cold. So it's like, okay, great. So he pinched my abdomen area really, really high. He's like, can you feel this? Is it painful? I said, I can feel pressure, but it's not painful. He's like, okay, good, means it's working. Then he took the sharp thing again. He's like, is it sharp? Can you feel it? I'm like, yeah. And he put it on my abdomen. Is it sharp? Can you feel it? I'm like, I can feel the sharpness. But he was like, then he's like, should be okay lah, should be okay.
Huh?
So he was like, should be okay. And I was just like, because the coldness I couldn't feel, the pinch I couldn't feel. It's just the sharpness that like I felt like I could still feel that it was sharp. So he was like, it should be okay. Can you imagine like lying on the operating theater,
Yeah.
and you're going on the basis of should be okay, like, and he's like, start. He told the doctor start. So like I was just like bracing myself for feeling like preparing myself mentally that I would feel the knife cutting into me, because like I'm like that was what I was going through. It was so scary. And what really calmed me, because I was like lying down, he actually looked over me and he's like, don't worry, I'm with you, okay? You have nothing to worry about. We are all here. We are all ready for anything to happen. You know, we are here. So I think that really calmed me, and like I was just overwhelmed, feeling this fear, and at the same time like trying to compose myself and not like cry during this surgery, you know. So like once they started, thank God I could not feel the sharp knife cutting into me or whatever, but I was awake, but they put this cloth so I couldn't see anything that was happening, and I could smell like, you know, the burning stuff, like, you know, some stuff that they were using to like cut open, I guess. So yeah.
What did it smell like?
I don't know. It you know, when you what's that? When you well something, you know, there's like that like
burning
smell.
smell.
Yeah, that's what I smelled.
Wow.
So like I was like, gosh, this is actually going into my skin and my stomach,
Yeah.
and my organs and stuff like that. So I was just like, gosh, and they actually put this like warm blanket on me, and they start this warm composure, and my hands were like to the side like that, and I was just lying down. So he told me that at one point I would actually feel some pressure and maybe some discomfort, because like this is epidural, this is not like a full general anesthetic where my whole body will be numb. So like he said, like it's only epidural, so I would feel some form of like discomfort when they were pushing on my abdomen to get the baby out. So at some points of the surgery I did feel like quite feel some pain, but it wasn't like the unbearable kind of pain. And since he prepared me already, I was just like, okay, I feel this, but I guess I should just like, you know, tahan it lah, you know. So when they finally reached the point to getting Clara out, I could feel like as though there were like two people on like, let's say I'm here, I could feel there was two people on each side, and they're like pushing on my abdomen. I felt like my entire body was just like shaking like that, and they were like pushing on my abdomen and to get the baby out. And once the baby was out, the doctor, anesthetic doctor, told me that he was like, okay, baby's out. And as soon as Clara came out, she immediately cried, and her cry was so loud, it was so strong, and I can't even explain like the rush of emotions that I think I was just holding it together so much that like finally when I heard her cry, I had this overwhelming sense of relief, that I started crying like so badly. I was tearing so badly, so much, and the anesthetic doctor was like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And then the other doctor was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah." I couldn't even talk. I was choking in my tears, and I was just like crying. I was so happy she's here to finally hear her first cry. I was so emotional. And of course they didn't immediately bring her to me. They brought her to like clean her up first, and gosh, like I just teared, and they're like, you're very emotional, is it? You're very touched. Then I was like, I just nodded because I couldn't talk. I was choking and just crying. So they were so sweet, you know. They took tissue and they were like started dabbing my eyes and stuff like that. And then Clara was quite far away. I could hear her like quite far away, but her cry was so loud and so strong that everyone in the doctor area was just like, whoa. And I was just like, wow. And they were like, wow, she got really good lungs, yeah. So when they finally brought her to me, they were still stitching me up. They brought her to me and her eyes were wide open, and she was just like looking around like that. She, for a young newborn baby, right, she was so active. Like her head, she was like lifting her neck.
She was so wide awake.
Yeah, and her
so
eyes
big.
was wide open, and she was just like looking around like that. Yeah. So yeah, that was like my first time seeing her and hearing her cry, and I was a mess. I was in tears. I was so happy to finally meet her, and it was like a feeling that I've never felt before. You know, like I didn't cry during our wedding. I didn't cry when Drew proposed to me. I didn't cry when I found out that I was pregnant. Like maybe I teared a bit, but I didn't like cry until this extent. And so like gosh, like this only shows me like the amount of love that I have for Clara. And they told me like, okay, now we're going to bring Clara to go see daddy. So I was so excited to hear, like, tell them how.
So yeah, I mean, I got a call from the room, from the labor ward, and told me that baby's ready, baby's out, you can come up and see her. But they said the mom is still being stitched up, like, you know. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I had this like very happy feeling that I'm going to see my daughter. So I went up to the third floor, to the room, to the level, and they basically roll her out to the lobby area to basically show me where my daughter. So
Oh, she was in the cot.
yeah, in the small glass cot line.
Oh, okay.
So when I first saw her, I was like, wow. It's like she looks so beautiful, and her eyes were wide open, wide awake, and for me, my feeling, my heart was like, it was jumping for joy. It was the same feeling when I saw Boo walk down the aisle. That feeling, like I wanted to tear, I wanted to cry, but at the same time, I felt so happy that we're able to finally see her. You know? She's been in Boo's stomach for 9 months, and we've been talking about her for so long.
Couldn't wait to see how she looks like.
And finally we see her how big her eyes are, her nose, she has Boo's nose and lips. We're like, wow. And I just talked to her, sang to her, and I even asked nurse whether we can pick her up. They said, yeah, if you're brave enough,
What
you
did
can.
you sing?
I sang fish.
Aww,
So,
Clara sea fish.
yeah, so I picked her up, sang to her, and she just looked at me and just like, and she was not crying or anything. She just looked and just was so calm and so peaceful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just really amazing. After a while, the nurse came back and she said, "Oh, all set already." Then
but it took a while before that happened, because like when they were stitching me up, I actually started getting really bad shivers.
Yeah.
Like that was another scary part of this entire experience for me, because I've never had shivers like that before. My entire body was literally shaking so badly, and like I couldn't control it. I couldn't stop it as much as I wanted. And the thing is, like during surgery, I was so exhausted from labor that I kept falling in and out of sleep. But the thing is that during the third trimester, I actually developed this thing called sleep apnea, where whenever I fall asleep, my airways here will actually collapse, and that will cause me to not be able to breathe when I fall asleep, and that would cause me to wake up gasping for air. So that happened a lot during the process when they were stitching me up. It actually took some time for them to stitch me up because I went in at 7 p.m. for the surgery. 7:17 p.m. Clara was born. So the entire surgery only took 17 minutes for Clara to be born. And then after that, they stitched me up. So from 7:17 all the way to 9 p.m. they were stitching me up. So that actually took quite a long time. And that's because like it's not just one layer of stitches. They actually had to do several layers of stitches. Throughout the entire time, I was shivering. I was falling in and out of sleep, waking up gasping for air. So it was just something that was a really crazy experience for me. Once they brought me out of the operating theatre, I actually couldn't be brought up to the ward just yet because I was still shivering like mad, and they had to actually place me under a warmer and check my BP and everything before they actually send me back up to the ward. They had to make sure that I was okay and I was like stable. Yeah, so during that time they actually brought Clara to me to try and like latch onto me to breastfeed for the first time because she was hungry. But unfortunately, because of the warmer that was on me and the position that I was at, it was really hard to breastfeed her. So we tried, but you know, the whole situation just wouldn't permit it. Plus I was shivering like crazy. So yeah, in the end they just brought her out. So I was actually at that observation area from 9 p.m. until 10:30 p.m. So that was pretty crazy because this entire time I think Ju was just like waiting for me. Yeah. And waiting to, because he had my stuff, so he had to basically wait for me until they brought me back to the ward so that he can bring his things, bring my things over, and so that I'll have it for the next day.
Yep.
So yeah, what were you doing?
Just waiting, watching Netflix again.
Wow, watching Netflix. Chillest husband and dad ever.
Yeah, just waiting lah, waiting for time to pass.
Yeah. So finally at 11 p.m. they wheeled me to the ward, and Drew came up with my bag and the baby's bag and the food that you know my mom-in-law cooked. And they actually don't recommend you to eat for like the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours after surgery because they scared you vomit and things like that. But dude, I was so hungry, and I was like the entire day regretting that my last meal was some very sad porridge and this like random chocolate drink. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm so hungry, I need to eat something right now. I obviously didn't like munch straight away on things. But you know, I started by drinking water, drinking soup and things like that, so that really helped a lot. I was in a lot of pain, like the epidural started to wear off already, so that was like pretty quick, like right after surgery, right? Like the left side of my abdomen was like hurting so badly. And the thing is, after surgery you still get contractions, like even until now I still get contractions.
Yeah.
So like that's something that hurts a lot.
And that will last what, when you are 6 weeks, or even some mothers, they will last for a year.
Yeah. Right. So like I got surgery, right after surgery I continued getting contractions, and the left side of my abdomen was really painful. So I'm just thinking like, gosh, like the epidural has not wear off completely and I'm really feeling this amount of pain. I can't imagine, or I'm scared to imagine the pain that I will feel when the epidural completely wears off. So yeah, like honestly all of that was really a lot to go through and a lot to take in and a lot to process. And so I was brought up by 11 p.m. By 11:30 p.m. they actually brought Clara to see me and to have some skin time and to try and breastfeed her. So every time she was in my arms and she was snuggled, she got so comfortable, she just slept, right? Honestly, like the biggest challenge that Drew and I faced when she was born is waking her up to feed. Like she was the biggest sleeping beauty we've ever met, that like, you know, we it's so hard to wake her up, we just can't, you know.
I found out from one of my clients that one of the things you can try to wake her up is by putting a very cold cloth on her feet, and it was only then that it worked and she started to wake up. But other than that, for a while,
and then she goes back to sleep. Yeah. So like the thing is, like every time they brought her to me, she'll be so comfortable, she falls asleep, right? And then when they put her back in the bassinet, she'll wake up and then she'll start crying and then she wants to feed. And then this process like repeated itself, so I was just like going crazy. And honestly at that point, like I was so happy to see her, but at the same time I felt like I was still like numb, half body downwards, right? So I could only move my hands. and it was so painful to like even move because I was already feeling the pain on the left side of my abdomen. So when they brought her to me, like I honestly felt very happy to see her, but at the same time I felt really overwhelmed because it's like I feel like I can't move or feel my legs, and that was not a very nice feeling to feel. Like I was just like there lying down, and then you know I suddenly have this tiny human being which I have to feed, and I've not breastfed before, obviously, like this is gonna be my first time, so like everything was just really overwhelming. And but I was really happy that you know I got to video call Drew and to share that moment with her and with him, and I was took a photo of her for the first time, and she had this like massive dimple on her cheek with like this massive bow cheeks. It was like so cute. And yeah, so I was in a lot of pain and I could not move, I could not sit up, I was bedridden, and I was in so much pain. I took the only pain relief, guys, that I got was Panadol
and painkillers,
and this painkiller called Celebrex, right? When they gave me 2 Panadols, I was still in so much pain, it didn't help. So I asked them for like more painkillers, and then they gave me like Celebrex, and that helped a little. So yeah, that was the entire 25th of August. And so at 12:30 a.m, this was already 26th August, they took Clara so that I can get some sleep and heal and unnumb. So I tried to sleep in between this period, but I got disturbed by, you know, the rash that I was having. It was still really itchy, it was still very bad. So yeah, basically that was our entire labor and delivery story. It was really a hectic journey, and it didn't just end there, because the very next day, you know, they came to clean me up. That was another thing that I felt was like very, I don't know, it was just a new experience, because like I was still numb. So like they came to like literally wipe me down. They gave me some mouthwash to gargle, so that, because I couldn't go brush my teeth, and then they came to like change the catheter to like empty my bladder. Sadly at 6 a.m, pediatrics doctors came in, told me that Clara's white blood cell count was higher than the normal range, and because her white blood cell count was higher, they suspect that she was going through an infection and her body is trying to fight it. So because of that, they said that they want to place her on antibiotics for 3 days, which means that she would have to be separated from me and placed in the pediatrics ward.
Yeah, which is like a different block.
Yeah, different block. So that really made me very sad, because like, you know, they actually asked me, so do we have your consent to formula feed her? And I was just like, gosh, this is not in the plan at all. Like, I want to breastfeed her exclusively, and I didn't want to formula feed her at all. But you know, at the same time, they said like, you know, she's there, you're here, so you can't really breastfeed her. And so I was still determined. So I said like, you know what, I'll ask my husband to bring the pump, I'll try to pump, and then you feed her my breast milk instead. Because like, I know that if she is fighting an infection, my breast milk will help her to like get better so much quicker because of the antibodies that it has. So Drew brought the pumps. Unfortunately, because it was still like my first day after delivery, I didn't have much milk to pump. I did have milk, but when I pumped it, it wasn't sufficient to last her like the entire day, because the doctor wanted to feed her 40 ml every 3 hours. So that is a lot to pump consistently. So what happened is, on the very next day, just 6 hours after surgery, I got out of bed and walked. Like, gosh, this is like the biggest achievement I've ever had, but also it was the toughest time I've ever experienced. Like, getting off the bed and going to the toilet and peeing for the first time was so hard. This nurse called Kat Yan was actually the person who walked me through it and helped me through it. And I've never felt so dependent in my life before. I never had anyone stand with me in the bathroom and watch me pee before. Like, that was the first time ever, and like the entire experience is just overwhelming. It's really crazy to explain how it made me feel, being someone who's so independent, to then suddenly having someone who had to follow me to the bathroom and then watch me pee and to make sure that I didn't faint in the toilet. So this entire experience was just it was just crazy, you know. I have no other word for it. And so I was sweating so bad. I was sweating so badly during that time. Drew came because he was gonna wheel me to the peds ward to he brought my breakfast and
breakfast
lunch
in the morning.
Breakfast and lunch.
Breakfast and lunch. Then
I tried to walk to him to get the stuff, but I was sweating so much because I literally just got out of bed to try and walk. The nurses saw me and all of them rushed to me, and they like, it was quite a commotion. Like Drew was there, he was holding the bags. I was walking to Drew, and then all the nurses saw me sweating. One of them grabbed me, the other one went to rush to get a wheelchair. Long story short, Drew had to wheel me in the wheelchair to the Pete's ward the very next day so that I can breastfeed her as much as we could.
But that basically I had to go over to the hospital, drive over to the hospital with her food, and also wheel her to the Pete's ward so she can directly feed Clara. But that didn't mean she was discharged yet. She was not discharged yet. It was only after a few days, then only she was discharged. Then only she stayed with Clara at the Pete's ward to directly feed her and take care of her. But yeah, that was a long process. That was a long story. A lot more to tell.
But that is basically our labor and delivery story. So 24th I was induced. I only got discharged on 27th from my ward, and then I roomed in with Clara at the Pete's ward on 27th until 28, and then we came out on the 28th, right? Yeah, we finally went home on the 28th. So 24th until 28th we were in the hospital. So yeah, we came back on the Sunday, and we were so happy to finally be home together as a family. And the last 3 weeks of postpartum have been crazy, but we will do that in another video because this video is long, super long already. So yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. And we're just really happy. We've been just really using the past 3 weeks to really just enjoy and just spend time with Clara and really get used to this whole new parenting and being new parents, having baby Clara with us in our lives. So she's crying now. It's time for her feed. So we'll catch you in the next video. Bye.